What's up, everybody? I'm back with a new movie review of The Wolf of Wall Street, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. This is honestly one of my favorite Martin Scorsese films of all time. And honestly, I thought this movie should have been the time that Leonardo DiCaprio should have won an Oscar and not just having to get mauled by a bear in order to get one. Which, honestly, in my personal opinion, was like a pity throw of an Oscar because it's like, because people kept begging to give him an Oscar because he continuously making hit after hit after hit and not getting one until he practically had to get mauled by a bear in order to get one. But he should have got one in this. He should have got one in Inception. Some argue he probably should have got one in Shutter Island. Many times that he should have gotten one because he's a phenomenal actor and probably one of my favorite actors. And in terms of personal life, I got so much respect for this man. And it's like, dude, he living a dream of many men that bust to make something of themselves and just, working on his craft, banking, hot 20 somethings on yachts, and just minding his own business outside of maybe doing some environmental awareness kind of things. But outside of that, he is just like that guy. A lot of people look at him as like the kind of life that a lot of dudes, not all, but a lot of dudes want to live that way. He figured it out. Whereas like, he's hooking up with girls who, consenting adults, mind you, who, know what it is. Let's be real. They know what it is. They hope one of them be the ones to like really lock in with Leonardo DiCaprio. But as soon as they hit 25, sayonara. Could he change his mind and somebody win his affections to the point of marriage? Possibly. Hasn't happened yet at the time of this recording. But, like with George Clooney, I like that, eventually George Clooney got married, but he had like a long stint of just a bachelor life. And that would like a lot of dudes even respected that. So like it kind of trickled down to Leo DiCaprio now, and honestly, kudos to him. Like all his accomplishments, like his acting capabilities. Like, this dude is just incredible. Anyway, The Wolf of Wall Street is based off of the memoir written by Jordan Belfort, who back in the early 90s was arrested for let's like, what's the legal I just want to make sure I got the proper legal term. Securities fraud and money laundering related to stock market manipulation and running a boiler room scheme. The specifics, just in case you wanted to know. Leo DiCaprio and Warner Bros. Was in a bidding war in order to acquire the rights to the memoir, which Belfort made $1 million off the deal. This film also won the Guinness Book of World Records as the most instances of swearing in a motion picture. They said the F word 569 times. They said the C word 3 times, twat twice, F face once, prick 4 times, averaging 2.81 profanities per minute. The previous record holders were Scorsese's gangster films Goodfellas, and Casino, which respectively had 300 and 422 uses of the word. Uh, uh, the 1993 film Menace to Society had 305 uses. Then, prior to that, 1997 British film Nil by Mouth, which has 428, and the 1999 film Summer of Sam have at 435. Uh, but uh, it was like the record has since been broken by SwearNet the movie, which uses the word, I'm assuming it's the F word, 935 times, but still holds the record for major theatrical release. The film's distributor in the United Arab Emirates cut 45 minutes of scenes of swearing, religious profanity, drug use, sex, and nudity, and muted dialogue containing expletives. The National reported that filmgoers in the UAE believed the film should not have been shown rather than being heavily edited. So, yeah. So, yeah, this movie had a lot going for it. Also, Margot Robbie's big theatrical debut. She prior to this, she acted in some stuff, mostly in Australia, where she's from, and it's like soap opera stuff. But this was like a big breakout movie role. And of course, the scene where she kind of opens her legs to Jordan, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that it was completely unscripted. Caught Leo by surprise to get like the actual reaction to this. I believe that's how it was played out. But yeah, I just thought I had to bring that up before I got into the meat and potatoes of the story. But yeah, anyway, like, of course, I love this movie. It had like a budget of $100 million at the budget, and the box office at a raked in $407 million. So it did substantially well. Anyway, it stars like I said, Leo DiCaprio as Jordan Belfort, Jonah Hill as Donnie Azoff. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these names, aside from Belfort, had their names changed up slightly to avoid, so the studios can avoid getting sued. Like, Donnie Azoff, which I think is supposed to be Danny, threatened to sue, so they had to change the name. And if you look it up, a lot of this stuff is very accurate, aside from like certain name changes and a couple of other things, fairly accurate of what transpired back then. And the guy who was Danny or Donnie Azoff actually did marry his first cousin, and had 3 kids with her, which is gross. Like, I don't even know what the other families must have thought, unless they weren't very close with them or something. It was still weird, even for the 80s. That was weird. And I'm not sure what those kids must look like or what their genetics must be, because if they end up having children, not with each other obviously, but if like they end up hooking up, marrying, and having children of their own, how's that gene pool gonna look like? It's so gross. But then he ends up getting divorced from her, and then remarrying, and then got divorced from her around 2020. Just a little inside tip. Margot Robbie as Naomi Paglia. the Duchess, Matthew McConaughey. There's a lot of people doing like big parts here, big names on big parts here. It's kind of wild. You got Matthew McConaughey, who plays Mark Hanna, Kyle Chandler, who I just did like a reaction video of the Lanterns TV show that just dropped, where he playing Hal Jordan. So check out my reaction video of that. He plays FBI agent Patrick Denham, or Denham. The late great Rob Reiner, who passed away or was murdered like earlier this year by his own son. It's kind of wild if you when you're thinking about it. Who plays Max Belfort, the father. Christine Ebersole plays Leah Belfort, the mom. John Bernthal plays Brad Budnick. Jon Favreau as Manny Riskin. Jean Dujardin, who plays Jean-Jacques Cyril, a Swiss banker guy. Joanna Lumley as Aunt Emma, the aunt to Naomi. We got Christine Militoi. God, I butchered that. Meloiti as Teresa Petrillo, Jordan's first wife. And honestly, it's still like until the Penguin, I did not even realize it was the same woman in this film who's playing Sophia, and the same woman who was in How I Met Your Mother. And it's like, oh my god, I did not until the show wrapped up. It was around that time I was like, wait a minute, that's the same woman from Wolf of Wall Street. And wow, because they made her in this film look kind of slubby. And again, it was like from Jersey, so it's kind of like the every woman kind of thing. But she is hot. The actress is so hot. Oh my god. We got Shay Winkham as Captain Ted Beecham. PJ Barn as Nikki Kosoff. Kenneth Choi as Chester Ming, who honestly, for some reason I don't care for that character, because like his biggest, like I won't say his biggest contribution, but the most thing like I seen this man doing is stuffing his face with crap. Brian Saka as Robbie Finberg. So, yeah. There's a lot of great moments in this film. A lot of hilarious moments, too. So, it was 1987. It's kind of wild thinking back there. I was probably either wasn't conceived yet, or I was still in my mother's belly at that time when this is, carrying on. Matter of fact, I think I might be slightly older. And I might be. I'm pretty sure I'm a few years older than Jordan Belfort's kids right now, because they should be in their like mid 30s at this point, early to mid 30s at this point. So at this time, he's 25 years old, getting on to working at Wall Street at the what it used to be L.F. Rothschild, employed under Mark Hanna. Complete dick. But no, not Mark Hanna. Sorry, I'm thinking about like the other dude that was like pulling him in, and was being like very rude to him. But then Mark Hanna's played by Matthew McConaughey, pretty much took him under his Belfort under his wing, which I really like. But it's just a shame that some of these people, like, you don't see what happened to them afterwards. Throughout, once that little part is done, it's like you don't see them ever again. Because usually I like those little things in the. It's not. I know it's not like a biopic in a traditional sense, but I kind of wish that we had like a thing at the end where it's like, where is everybody at right now, kind of thing. And I'm so curious to see like what's happened to like Mark Hanna, what's happened to Belfort, first wife, like where are they at, kind of thing, or what happened to them. I was like very curious about that. Anyway, so uh, 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 Belfort and learning, because a lot of these stockbrokers, especially at the time, it was the 80s, height of capitalism, had to take like cocaine, and they like jerking off in order to like keep their minds sharp because they are dealing with numbers all day. And you know Belfort, like he's like it's like really good at this, but until like Black Monday, the infamous uh 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 you know well, I want to say stock crash, the stock market crash. Yeah, I just missed the word. The biggest stock market crash since the 1920s uh happened. So a lot of people was out of work. Thanks to uh let's say Mrs. Belfort, but Mrs. Belfort at the time, suggested working at this penny stock little area in Long Island. You do so well there, he decided to he's making like a small fortune. He ends up running into his neighbor, Donnie, who let's be honest, was kind of a weirdo. Even before you knew about the whole cousin situation, it was kind of a weirdo. But he saw the pay stub that Jordan was making and decided, like, okay, I quit my job, I'll work for you. So he does, and he's one of the kind of, I want to say introduce Jordan to drugs, but he definitely everybody was, it was the 80s, tons of people, definitely like certain adults, depending on the profession, were like taking a lot of drugs at that time, because cocaine was like hitting the market more so than any drugs out there. It was like, it was like cocaine, then maybe weed after. Anyway, Jordan starts bringing in like Chester Ming and Rugrat and Brad, and a couple of people to start what eventually will be known as the infamous Stratton Oakmont. And Jordan ended up teaching them how to sell to people, but they, let's be real, scamming folks, and they gotten very good at it. So like time goes by, they expanding, got more people. They eventually had their own building, and I like how Leo was pretty much not only narrating, but often, I'm gonna say breaking the fourth wall, but he there's a couple times he definitely broke the fourth wall, but he sitting there talking with us, as he's like taking us on this journey, filling you in about the certain lingo and world of stocks and Wall Street and everything like that. And matter of fact, there's been times that I've seen the real Jordan Belfort on certain interviews and podcasts every once in a while. I don't actively search for the guy, but when he pops up, my ears kind of tune in, because he knows his stuff. He did scam a lot of people. In terms of business and stocks, and he's very knowledgeable. He kind of used it for ill. He's very good. Uh, uh, Matter of fact, he actually him and this who's working with Bo Diatel actually had cameos in this film, where Jordan has his own private investigator, Bo Diatel, which was a real thing, and he, you know, wanted himself to play himself, and he was in the film. Jordan Belfort had like a slight cameo towards the tail end as the what was it? Uh, um, Auckland Straight Line host at the end of the film. Uh, he plays the host. So uh, I thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, so like more and more that they're growing and making all this money, it's like definitely the height of depravity where they not only like there's people like taking when they're not working, they're like taking so much drugs. They like banging hookers. You know, they practically like doing it in full view of like almost everybody, or even like in the freaking bathrooms, like girls getting railed, in like the men's room. Uh, ladies, a lady shaving her head for $12,000. It was wild. Dude got a BJ on an elevator in full view of everybody. Same girl who was the office pass around, which I'm not sure how this dude did not know this, but he ended up marrying a girl. Then 2 years later, unalived himself. Uh, when he found out, how much of a gutter trash woman his wife was. Golly, seeing all that stuff, I can't help but think about. I was listening to this clip, or what is like a podcast. I think it was like a few months ago, where a woman, an older woman, who was in like her young 20s during the 80s, and she was working at like an office and everything like that. And she's talking about like this. I don't want to say like what she viewed as manipulation or assault, and not in like a traditional sense, like she got yanked off the streets and blah blah blah. But it's just like it was in like working at an office, and some dude came on to her, but she just like allowed it to happen because she was afraid of losing her job, and it was like a very typical kind of stories. Not saying that was not right, that was wrong, it was horrible, but as you deep dive and you kind of think about what was the era of that time, you can't help but think that she's doing revisionist history, because how many 20 somethings working in an office space, and they're feeling like a particular dude, or a dude that's obviously a big deal, and it's just like, not to discount her story, it could easily be legitimate, or she's kind of looking back and feeling ashamed about certain things that she done in her youth that she wouldn't have done now as she's wiser. But let's be real, there's too many young girls that's working with certain people. A couple of dudes might be very mature, financially well off, and very charming, and they like to and they mess around with the guy. Often turns into a relationship maybe, but other times they knew that like, hey, I like him, and he's handsome, and I want to hook up. But then years later they want to, because I'm thinking of the females depicted in this film. I'm sitting there thinking like, I hope they not like looking back, because now we got Me Too and all this other stuff, and we live in a different like kind of time that was vastly different compared to the 80s. But hey, looking back on it, it's like having like mixed feelings. And it's like, oh my God, was that coercion? Was I manipulated? No, you was horny. You was like, you was, living a life of debauchery. Sure, you might not have done it now because you're a lot wiser, but you was young and everybody was getting rich and doing a lot of drugs and partying. And like, you was doing things that, a lot of people was doing. Not saying it was right. I'm not saying that you should condone it, but it's like you're going to Vegas, in your 20s or in your 30s, and like I went to Vegas a couple years ago. I had a great time. I not cocaine, but I tried edibles for the first time there. I drunk quite a bit there because I don't do it as often. I was having fun. I wasn't doing too wild of a stuff, but I was definitely down to clown. I am not going to sit there and like 20 years later be sounding like, man, I can't believe that I did this and that and third. And it's like it's taking ownership of your part to play because you still had free will. You had like some level of agreement that that you still took. It's kind of like I can't help but think like how many of these ladies in these kind of scenarios are like, oh my God, Jordan Belfort did this, and it's like you probably was the same girl that was not thinking twice of going down on a dude on an elevator in full view of everybody. So don't come down 20 years later because it's popular or trendy now to out your supposed manipulator or narcissist or whatever like that. When you know full well at the time you was like down to clown. I'm just saying, okay, it's just like, I don't like revisiting this history. You knew what was up. It's like, don't paint like guys as these like master hypnotists when you was charmed, you liked the guy, you was in the throes of like that party stage in your youth, and you was hot and young, and you was like just like any young girl nowadays who egging other girls on to come to this party. It'll be a lot of rich, hot, older men, and you might like do this and that. Come on, come on. They had hot girl summers before it was like a label. They all done it, one way or the other. I don't want to say all, but a good portion of women, especially if you think about the 80s, getting to the early 90s, please, full well what was up. Hopefully you had like smart parents to keep you in the house, to keep you out of arm's reach from this type of stuff. Because those are the ones that probably had like some sense. Anyway, had to bring this up because you see all these wild parties, you can't help but think, wow, even though I probably wouldn't be doing no drugs like that either, but I'm definitely gonna be getting a fair bit of drunk, and I'm definitely gonna be not banging hookers, but find like a hot chick that like I'm a dude. Will I make that a habit? No. But if somebody invites me to a shindig like that, like, hey, there's a party that some hotshot stockbrokers are throwing, and like I got an invite. You want to hang? And I was like, sure. Like, probably have like a great night. Anywho, eventually in one of these little beach house or summer home parties that Jordan was hosting, that's where he meets the Duchess or Naomi, and he's infatuated with her. He managed to get her number and go on a date, and they had this torrid affair. Eventually his wife found out. He broke it off with her, which is very sad, honestly, because she was a ride or die kind of woman. And of course, we didn't have sense at that time. But I think, in my personal opinion, nowadays, I figured in my opinion, a guy like who Jordan Belfort was at that time on his rise, you should not had to like you don't need to hide something like that for your from your girl. You should at some point like look for when I was not using like his name like it's like the Almighty or anything like, but you're Jordan Belfort or you're Usher, you're Michael Jordan, you're a big man on campus essentially. You're that dude, but not by your own voice, but through the voices of other people who look upon you and see what you achieved out of admiration and respect. And it's like you are that dude by that standard. You achieved something, you worked hard for something, you have the knowledge and the talent, and you monetize those skills to amass this big fortune and a kingdom. You can dictate how you want to move, and whatever girl that's with you should be right along. You don't have to sit there and hide. It's like, look, I want to bring this other girl into a relationship. I'm still going to take care of you. I'm still going to love you. But like, this is what we're going to do. She can not like it. She can choose to leave. Leave it up to her. I don't believe you need to, especially if you're on that level, you do not need to sit there and have to hide anything. You don't need to lie. What's he gonna do? Like broke, I don't say broke in terms of finances, but broke-minded guys are the ones that need to hide something. If you're like one of the creme de la creme of dudes in the eyes of lots of women, whatever girl you're with who respect and look upon you with a lot of like respect and love and all that stuff, wouldn't mind like making sure you're pleased and stuff like that, as long as she's like the number one. Jordan, that's where I think, well, at least aside from scamming people, he really messed up in terms of a good woman, because she would have at least done something to keep him from going overboard with the debauchery. Because Naomi wasn't like anchoring him, in my opinion, because she had her own, because she was living a life. Of course, she loved her children, and that's probably the most important thing in her eyes. But prior to that, she, after eventually they got married, she was doing all the shopping. She changing hobbies left and right, off of course, Jordan's dime. And then, of course, she got very comfortable, started throwing water in his face, talking very slick out of her mouth. Typical, married stuff. Because she definitely wasn't behaving like a wife. She was a trophy wife. Let's be real. She was a glorified trophy wife. Hot, but, definitely wasn't marriage material. Because the first wife, Teresa, she, knew how to move properly like a wife, but she just probably wouldn't have encouraged, the level of debauchery that Jordan got into. Anyway, there was like funny wild moments where they had like their own little butler who was gay, and then they only came home and watched this full-blown orgy happening with all these dudes, and telling Jordan as he got home, and it's like they was all over the place. They were sitting on each other like, ugh. It's like and then found out that some money was stolen out of his dresser drawer, and so his buddies like threatened to toss him off the side of the balcony. But then he had to like call the cops so you can avoid like his friends from killing the dude. But then he called the cops and paid them to beat him up. But But then through the course of all this, while Jordan's getting, after the marriage and, uh, and like having this big old bachelor party in Vegas and all these different hookers and like all the drugs and the drinking and everything like that. They get married, and through the course of all that, he's being investigated by the FBI because they realized he was doing some underhanded stuff. Once he do find out, against his private investigators, advice, Bo, which was very good advice. Ironically, Bo is actually working for President Trump's cabinet, I think. Yeah. He's an American media personality, actor, and political appointee. He's a member of Trump's Homeland Security Advisory Council. So, wow, he really came up since private investigator days. But he told us to do not contact this guy. He really doesn't have much on you. All he does is just sniffing around, because leave it to your lawyers, leave it to me, and you just stay out of it. But of course, Jordan, who thinks he's untouchable because he's riding high, like he's been, hitting home runs since he started Stratton, so he thinks he's he's upper echelon. But then you get this awesome scene where he tried to bribe, Denham on his yacht, and you get the iconic line from him. It's like, "Can you say that just as you said, just like that?" Clearly, they're wearing a wire, him and his partner, and it's like, yeah, he do. It's like he knew at that moment. It's like, yeah, it's like, God, dude, you because the level of arrogance he had. But stop spamming in the chat. I have to block you. Please stop. So he then just moving around. Yeah, just behaving just whatever. Knowing full well he got dogs sniffing at his heels. But he realized he gotta move his money into a Swiss bank account, feeling okay, we gotta avoid his ill-gotten gains from getting found out by the FBI. So that's where we get the beef between Donnie and Brad. I keep wanting to call him Jeff. Sorry, Jeff. I keep calling him one of John Bernthal all the time. Brad and Donnie get into it, where Donnie talking all big and bad, like he's about that. You look at something like, Brad, who, obviously ain't somebody you want to mess with. And he already got clocked once. But then, Donnie's an idiot. He's one of those things that will tear you, kind of people in these kind of movies that will tear you down very easily. And he does. He ends up getting Brad arrested after he had this big argument in front of everybody instead of just doing the money exchange like they planned. So he trying to get Jordan high, trying to avoid talking about it, trying to avoid any kind of accountability whatsoever, knowing he will eventually find out. But he give him these expired Quaaludes, but then he gets a call from Bo, who tells him find a payphone so he can freely talk. So he drives over to the nearby country club to have a conversation, and Bo tells Jordan, your home is tapped, the wires are tapped. like Brad got arrested. It was like he was arguing with somebody, and then that a light bulb goes off in uh, Jordan's head. And it's like I knew something was. He obviously, understandably mad, but that's when the Quaaludes kicked in, and you get this also funny scene, awesome, funny, hilarious scene where he's just sitting there like, drooling, and his body's not responding to what his brain is telling him. So he's crawling to his Lamborghini, and at first you think he managed to drive oh so carefully, smoothly back home, but he didn't. Obviously, he crashed and darn near everything on his way back to his house, driving recklessly under the influence. But he crawled into his house and tries to strangle Donnie, who's on the phone talking with people, saying things incriminating. And because he's, they both all drugged up now, the Quaaludes are kicked in, and now they can't react or speak, coherently yet. At this time, like, Naomi is like pregnant with their second child. But Donnie trying to get away. For some reason, he wanted to like grab a quick snack before his friend gets coherent enough to come chase after him. He chokes on a piece of meat, and ironically, as the cartoon Popeye was playing, he takes some cocaine in order to rejuvenate himself enough to get up and go over and do the Heimlich maneuver in order to save this bastard's life, who pretty much sunk him within 24-hour time span because of his stupidity, which I'm shocked that he's even associating with this guy throughout the rest of the events up until a certain point, because it's like you wouldn't want to not want anything to do with this SOB. So Jordan gets arrested for the related crime of the driving under the influence, but he gets released. But eventually, even after trying to move his money, overseas, the Swiss guy ends up getting busted through an unrelated scenario that has nothing to do with Jordan, but in order to not get sent to prison, they find out about Jordan Belfort, and knowing he's a bigger fish, decides to rat on him so he won't get sent to prison. Turns out that Swiss guy is banging Brad's girlfriend the whole entire time. So there's that. Then Jordan had to wear a wire in order to incriminate his own buddies, which he ends up doing, but slips a paper like, not doing, but he slips a paper saying like I'm wearing a wire. But instead of, for some reason, neither one of these idiots throws away the incriminating paper, rip it up, eat it, something. Instead of doing any of that stuff, obviously the FBI finds that paper, realizing he reneged on the deal to avoid a heavy prison sentence. He gets sent up the river for, it's supposed to be like 32 months, but it ends up being 22, by the time he got out on good behavior. But in the end, the film ends with Jordan now, doing interviews and hosting seminars, teaching people how to, sell, using sales techniques. It even ends on like the awesome moment where it's like, sell me this pen, which comes back around from earlier in the film. And that was The Wolf of Wall Street. Very fun film. Love this film. Golly, I watched this film like at least 5 times because it was so doggone good. Out of all the Martin Scorsese films, this one's my personal favorite. And honestly, my favorite Leo DiCaprio film of all time. So much fun to watch this. And if you're into like business and sales and marketing, you end up learning some stuff from Belfort. Not just little tidbits in his film here, but if you want to actually learn from the horse's mouth, you can look up his little seminars or interviews on podcasts and stuff like that. And you can learn some tools of the trade that might benefit you. But anyway, I have another Leo DiCaprio film that I want to review. Inception is honestly probably like second favorite Leo DiCaprio film, but yeah, that one's really fun. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I will see you guys next time. I got so much videos to make this evening, so I want to hop right to it. So I will see you all later.